So what does it actually take to try and live forever? Or, at least to age 120? Well, one man is spending millions of dollars to find out. Today, we're cracking open his personal toolkit to see the essentials he uses in his pretty radical quest for longevity.
All right, let's just kick things off with a claim that honestly sounds pretty much impossible. From the man himself, Brian Johnson, I achieved the best sleep score in human history, 8 months of perfect sleep. Wow.
That is a seriously bold statement. So how did he do it? And what other essentials does he swear by? We're going to dive into his whole system, which he calls Blueprint, and break down some of the key tools he's used on this journey.
Okay, so everything, and I mean everything, starts with the first pillar of his philosophy, controlling the environment around him. And this isn't about, just tidying up. This is about establishing a rock-solid baseline of control over the passive stuff in his life, the air he breathes, how his food is stored, and even the bed he sleeps in.
And you can really see the difference here. On one side, you've got a typical home. Air quality, who knows? Food in plastic containers, yep. But then you look at Johnson's setup. He uses a certified air purifier to make sure the air is absolutely pristine. And for his food, he uses stainless steel to avoid any potential toxins leaching from plastic. It's all about eliminating the variables you can control.
Now for the final piece of his environmental control, and man, he puts it perfectly here. Sleep is the #1 performance-enhancing drug of your entire life.
So how do you even optimize for something like that? Well, he uses this smart mattress that actively changes its temperature all night long. The science backs this up, suggesting it really improves sleep quality. But for Johnson, the proof is in his own data. Whenever he travels without it, his sleep scores take a nosedive. This bed is a key weapon in his arsenal for achieving that perfect sleep.
All right, so we've covered his environment. Now let's move on to the second pillar, fuel, fix, and fortify. This is where we get into the active stuff, the substances and tools he uses to power up and repair his body. You hear the term superfood thrown around all the time, right? Well, for him, this isn't just some marketing buzzword. A food only gets that label after his team has literally combed through mountains of scientific evidence to find what is genuinely, measurably beneficial. He was on the hunt for a superfood among superfoods.
And the winner is extra virgin olive oil. It's kind of surprising, right? But he consumes more of this specific lab-tested olive oil than any other single food in his diet. And his protocol, it's dead simple. 1 15-milliliter tablespoon with every single meal. Fitness is obviously a huge part of his routine, but it's not about having some crazy high-tech gym. It's all about what he calls smart solutions for accessibility. Take these adjustable dumbbells. They let him stick to a super rigorous workout routine from anywhere. He says they're the most used piece of equipment he owns, which just goes to show that consistency really beats complexity. And his approach is just incredibly detailed, right down to his hair. I mean, every single morning he follows this strict protocol. First, a growth serum, then a scalp massage to get the blood flowing, and he wraps it up with a 6-minute session under a red light therapy cap. It's not a chore for him, it's just another automated part of his morning routine.
Okay, so after all that physical stuff for fuel and fix, Johnson focuses on something even deeper, the nervous system. To get what he's doing next, you gotta understand we basically have 2 modes. Fight or flight, amped up, stressed out, and chill, which is our calm, restorative mode. Johnson's whole goal here is to consciously flip the switch into that chill state whenever he can.
And to do this, he uses a couple of really fascinating gadgets for what's called vagus nerve stimulation. First up is the NeuroSim, this little device he wears on his left ear that gives off a light electrical pulse. Then there's this Sensate, this vibrating teardrop-shaped thing he puts on his chest. It syncs up with music and helps him calm right down, especially if he wakes up in the middle of the night. And all of this, all these tools and protocols, bring us to the absolute core principle, the non-negotiable foundation of his entire system, the measurement mandate. This is his mantra, plain and simple: measure, measure, measure. His whole argument is that without hard, objective data, any health change you make is just guesswork. You have to track it to know if it's actually working.
So what's he using to get all this data? You might be surprised, but his daily toolkit is pretty accessible. He uses a wearable to track sleep and recovery, a smart scale for body composition, and just a simple digital thermometer. That's it. Those 3 things are the foundation of his whole data-driven approach.
And here's what that long-term measurement can actually show you. This is wild. Over 2 years, his average body temperature has dropped by almost 5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Now, a lower temp can sometimes be a red flag, but in his case, he sees it as a sign of increased metabolic efficiency. Basically, his body is just running cooler, using less energy when it's resting.
And this table really lays it all out, right? It shows exactly how each tool gives him a specific insight. The wearable, that's how he cracked the code on perfect sleep. The smart scale, that showed him the real impact of his diet changes. And the thermometer, that's how he tracked his metabolic efficiency. It's like a logbook of his body's journey, and it's all guided by the data.
So, where does this all lead? Let's zoom out for a second and ask the big question. What's in your protocol? Because for Johnson, this thing is not a finished product, not even close. It's an open source experiment, and it's always evolving.
Just look at this chart. At his peak, he was taking around 100 pills a day. 100. Now, based on what his data told him, he's down to about 35. This is the perfect example of his data-driven optimization in action. He's not just adding more and more stuff, he's constantly refining and, more importantly, removing whatever isn't working. And that brings us to the end, with his own questions. Questions he poses to everybody. What am I not using? What have you found that's better? What works the best? See, he's sharing his toolkit not because he thinks it's the final answer, but because he wants it to be a starting point for a huge conversation about what's possible. And it kind of leaves us with one final thought. What would measurement reveal about your own life?